In this episode of the podcast, we're talking about all things Facebook group with my special guest, Christina Jandali. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Mindful Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, ANDREA Jones. Tune in every week as we redefine marketing playbooks to break free from what we should do so that we can scroll less, connect more, and grow together. I've recorded over 300 podcast episodes. Yeah, it's a lot of podcast episodes, and I've tried a lot of different virtual recording studios, but my favorite has been Riverside. Riverside makes their virtual recording studio look so profesh. My guests love it. Plus, I also low-key love recording YouTube videos in here as well because it's so easy to use. My team also loves Riverside because it spits out separate audio video tracks, making editing easy breezy, lemon squeezy. And if you want a little magic, they've got this tool called Magic Clips, which uses AI to take your video and turn it into perfect social media sized videos. I'm talking vertical videos for TikTok and Instagram, Facebook Reels, all the places you can post these videos with the captions included, and you don't have to hunt and search for that perfect clip. So if you want to try this out for yourself, click the link that goes with this video, or if you're listening to the audio on the podcast, it's in the show notes, okay? Click that link, use the 15% off coupon code. It's DREA, D-R-E-A, and try Riverside for yourself. Thank you, Riverside. Christina, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you. I always like talking to fellow Canadians too. I feel like there's not enough of us here. A lot of our stuff tends to be US centric, which I love. I love the US. I'm from there, but I love talking to fellow Canadian. And I think that's important too, based on your story. So I want to start at the origin story of your business because you started it during your mat leave. Tell us about it.
Yes. So I was working in corporate. I was working in finance, actually managing wealthy people's money. So I would invest in stock market, bond market, mutual funds. And the challenge with that, however, is that being on the West Coast, being in Vancouver, everything is run on Eastern time zone. So the stock market opens at 6:30 in the morning Pacific time. So I would have to be in the office before 6:30. So 6 a.m. And after having children and just realizing this lifestyle and this life, first of all, is not conducive to being a mom. And it's pretty hard to find any childcare that's available for such like hours of the morning. Plus you don't want to wake your kids up so early in the morning as well too. But more so than that, really, when my daughter was born, I remember just feeling like I had all the boxes checked. I had a job, I had a husband, I had this brand new baby, I had money in the bank, all the things that you think that you could have wanted. And yet there was still like a piece of me that felt like there was something more for me to have, experience, be, do. And I didn't know what it was. And even though when I was looking at my daughter, just thinking, oh my gosh, like you have this brand new baby, you just want them to live their best life and have everything. And I realized, well, how can I be an example for her if I'm not demonstrating what that looks like? And that really sunk in with me. So I knew that I wanted to be an example for her. And we learned so much more from our behavior than what it is that we say to our children. And so I knew from there that I was determined. I made a promise to her and me when she was a little baby that I was going to figure it out and go after my dreams and create a life that I loved. Instead of just checking the boxes.
That's so sweet. I love that. Because these kids watch everything we do anyways, right? Like they're trying to do everything we do. So it makes a lot of sense to make that decision for not just you, but for your family as well. Okay, so you started the business. Why did you decide to focus in on Facebook groups?
Yeah. So it's not like I put up a sign saying, hey, I'm going to teach Facebook groups. This is my thing. It actually came on the back end of so many things not working in my business. And so when I started my business, I was going to networking events. I'd get dressed up, have to get a babysitter, drive all the way into the city. It would take hours. I'd come home with a couple business cards and I'd enter them into my autoresponder one by one and have like this very slow trickle of leads. And I tried doing all sorts of different things, speaking. I started a meetup group. No one came. Like I was doing all these things. I was slowly starting to build my list and build some interest, but I was so far off from hitting like the revenue goals that I had set for myself and my business. And I just couldn't shake the feeling of like something's missing. Like, what am I not getting here? Like, it can't be like, it feels so much harder than it needs to be. And it's so much slower. And you look at all these people's stories online and they go from like 0 to 100 in, 2.2 nanoseconds. And therefore I'm looking at myself thinking, what the heck's going on? I'm missing something. Yeah. And it was actually in one of those like kind of hard moments where you're questioning, is this really worth it? Like, am I really cut out for this? Thinking about maybe it's just easier to, go back to a job. And in one of those moments, I remembered a moment where I was meeting for lunch with a mentor of mine when I was working in finance, and her name was Bev. And I was asking her, she'd been super successful. She was nearing retirement. I'm like, what's the secret to success? And she's like, Christina, it's really simple. I'm like, okay, this is going to be good. Leaning in, okay, waiting for this big answer. And she said to me, she says, it's just about relationships, Christina. It's just about creating connection. And when I had this moment where things weren't working, I remember that time I went out for lunch with her. And I think I just got so obsessed with looking at numbers, or are people watching my stuff? Are they clicking? How many signups? And I was looking at the metrics and the numbers, but I forgot the human factor to really thinking about how am I developing relationships and connection. And I thought, well, how can I do that online? I know how to do that offline, but I want to build an online business. What's the most effective way I could do that online? And that's really when I realized through the power of community, and a Facebook group would give me the opportunity to do that. So I went from like struggling, falling short of my financial, like monthly revenue goals, month after month after month. I'd never had a 10K month. I really wanted to have a 10K month. That was like my marker. And the very first month I started my Facebook group focusing on connection, I had a $30,000 month, and my mind was totally blown. And it was through that people started asking me, well, what are you doing over there? What's going on over there? Things are working for you. So that's how it became that I started teaching about Facebook groups.
Yes. And I love that this focus on community as well. I think that as business owners, we do get focused in on like the numbers and the leads and the list. And ultimately it does come down to connection and community. And I do think Facebook groups are a great place to foster those. But I do think that, and I don't know if you've seen this, but I think that the general sentiment about Facebook groups has started to skew a little bit negative. Have you started to see this a little bit in our online marketing space?
So everybody always has an opinion about something. And I look at the marketplace online as going through an evolution. And so as businesses or industries get more mature, what was easy and simple when you're new to market and everyone's like, oh, wow, you've got this thing. I've never seen this before. Or, yes, I'm in. Everyone's excited about it, and it makes it really easy. As an industry starts to mature, which the online education coaching space is starting to mature, people are getting more sophisticated. It's not new to market anymore. There's multiple people that are offering the same solutions, which means there's more noise, which means how we market ourselves, how we stand out, how we serve people really is going to require next level communication, connection that lands with people. And so I look at, Facebook is still like the number one platform for like world population. People, it's like proven that people will they'll spend 19% more when they're part of a community, when they make their buying decision. People are still looking online to be looking at communities for helping them make their buying decisions. But has it changed? Absolutely. And I think if we're not staying current and up to speed with what changes, then we get left behind, and then we're banging our head against the wall saying, things aren't working. Just like funnels or ads. When I started my business, with Facebook ads as an example, I was getting $1 leads. Well, sometimes I'll spend $20 on a lead to get a high value lead. So is it that Facebook ads don't work anymore? Or is it just the game's changed a little bit and there's more buy-in to create the same outcome and the result? So I think that's the most important thing of looking at it. It's like, okay, it's shifting. How is it shifting? And how am I staying ahead of the shifts to be able to still take advantage of it and recognizing that it's a more mature market?
100% agree. I mean, I see this with my clients in social media as well. When I started my business 10 years ago, it was a different conversation we were having about the potential of social media. It was so new, it was shiny. But now 10 years later, it has matured. And so it's just different conversations are had, different strategies need to be implemented. So I'm excited to talk about that specifically with you, Facebook groups. But my question is about Facebook pages. So a lot of times business owners go, should I focus on my page or should I focus on a group or should I do both? What's your opinion on that?
So I think looking at the distinction between the two, I think is super valuable. So the way I look at like social media, whether it's your business page or Instagram or TikTok or somewhere, the way I look at it is like, it's like a storefront. And it's giving someone like window dressing. It's like they're walking by, they're seeing the mannequin with the clothing on, and they're deciding like, do I want to go into the store? Am I interested? Does this pique my interest? Do I want more? So I look at like external social media platforms as like the storefront, whereas a Facebook group is like, well, come on inside, like come on and try that, try on the outfit. Let's like come on into my digital living room. So it has a different feel. And so to me, it's not like one versus the other, but how like to me, the community is like the center hub and where people are visible or where they have public pages. It's like the storefront where they're inviting people to come in to their space and into their community. So business pages, they're public, everyone can see it. Whereas a Facebook group, it's private if you have it set up private, so you can have intimate, private conversations where people will share more openly than they ever would on a public page.
Yeah. And I know that firsthand as well. I love being members of Facebook groups. Business wise, I find the best connections. And then recently I've been having a lot of fun with the personal Facebook groups. Toddler life, connecting with other moms, finding recipes. I'm even failing at gardening. So I'm in those Facebook groups. So there's like so much dynamic to those communities. Plus I don't have to download another app. Like it's already on Facebook. I'm already there.
It's true. Because I think a lot of the other things, like, people talk about Circle or School or places that they're offering like different community bases, or Telegram, that now you're competing with where people aren't spending their time and you're hoping that they're going to catch and see something. And it just hasn't had the same pull versus where people are already spending time.
Yeah. I love that. I will say personally too, I do find myself logging in more to Facebook than the other like communities like Circle or School or whatever. I have my own community on Circle, but I do find that Facebook groups, it depends on the engagement in the group. And I know you talk a lot about engagement bubbles. So can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Yes. So engagement, here's just reach across all social media platforms changes and comes down over time as the platform gets more mature. It just is. First to market, same thing that we're talking about too. Like it diminishes over time. And so when we think about engagement, most people are thinking, I just need to add more value. If I add more value, if I give more how-tos, if I give more stuff, now people are going to want to engage and they're going to want to communicate. But in a community, people are there to create connection with you. And if we're just piling up a lot of how-to content, so if people are experiencing, they feel like they're running out of content ideas or they're putting so much content out, like what else is there left to say? Like, are people going to want to buy my offer? And they feel like they're pouring so much out and they're trying really hard to get people to respond, to get people to comment, to get people to engage. They're often focused on this push of trying to stockpile more stuff, more posts, more this to get engagement. And that keeps them in this cycle of the engagement bubble, which is almost like you're on a rocking chair and you're walking back and forth, right? Back and forth, but you're not going anywhere. Like there's nothing happening. Like there's a lot of doing, but you're not getting anywhere. Yeah. Versus when we look at creating purposeful engagement is actually creating connection conversations that relate to your body of work or how you help people. So I'll give you an example of that. I could go into my group and I could say, okay, how do you feel about the engagement inside of your Facebook group? how do you feel about it? So some people will say, oh my gosh, it's like crickets, like shoot me now. No one's talking to me. You're going to have the other people that say, oh, it's on fire. People are alive. They're so excited. You're going to have some people like engagement, like what engagement, right? So you're going to have all these people that have different responses. But the beautiful part about a question like that, it's still related to what I would be helping people with. So it's creating conversation around my body of work related to Facebook groups, but it gives people an opportunity to express their interest. And posts like this, purposeful engagement, are like one-liners, super short posts that create easy responses and conversation that you can then use their languaging and what they share to now communicate back to them in your Facebook lives or even in your emails or your post, your headlines. So it's being able to create purposeful engagement rather than just saying, hey, are you a coffee drinker or a tea drinker? Like if you answer that and you're not selling coffee or tea, you're not getting anyone closer to making a buying decision from you. But if someone's expressing how they're experiencing the challenges that they're facing or the thing that you teach, you're now giving them an opportunity to feel seen, feel heard, open up, and you're doing it in a very simple, easy way. So it's actually about simplifying the way you're doing content versus spending more time on content. It's actually spending less time on content, but creating more conversational content.
Ooh, I want to get more into this strategy around conversational content. We're going to take a quick break and then we'll get into it when we get back. Social media is constantly changing. I know that, you know that, but not all of these changes are pertinent to your business. That's why I created The Feed. The Feed is a private audio experience of curated social media news and updates that relate to your business. So ditch the overwhelm and download The Feed today. And no, this isn't a subscription service. Pay one fee and get access to our entire back catalog, along with every single episode we release in the future. Head on over to OnlineDrea.com/feed to start feeling like a social media expert today. And we're back. I want to dive more into the strategy around Facebook groups, specifically making sure that it really matches your business and your business model. So at what point in someone's business should they decide to start a group? Is there like a minimum number of people that they should have in the group when they start? What's the strategy around that?
Oh, that's a great question. I think that I think there's 3 different types of people that a group is right for. To me, a group is great for someone when they have an idea of who they want to serve, but they don't know what their offer is going to be yet. And they haven't really refined that yet, but they have an idea of who they want to serve, because they can use their group to build community and then be able to survey and ask questions and get clarity on what their people are looking for to be able to create their offer. But a group and those beginner stages, sometimes when people haven't practiced using their voice, they might be scared of public visibility. A group gives them an opportunity to have like a safety closed network where they can practice communicating and speaking where the external world doesn't see them per se. And it gives them the opportunity to be able to get started with that. However, to me, you've got to get your first 100 members as fast as possible, because nothing's going to be going on happening in your group without at least that first 100. And so first 100 Facebook group members as fast as you can, ideally like within a week. It might take some people a little bit more than that, but you can get your first 100 members, which gives you a bit of a start. For more advanced businesses, like this we think was like sort of the beginner people, then more advanced businesses can use a Facebook group to increase their conversion. So whatever they're experiencing in their sales campaigns, having a Facebook group will increase the return that they see with the audience they have as a result of seeing that increase of connection. But it's like, okay, how big should my following be before I get started in the group? And to me, your group can actually grow your email list and help with the building of the group can grow your audience and allows it to be searchable. So I don't think there's like an entry point. I just don't, the only thing I'd say is if you don't know who you want to serve and you have no idea what you want to do, well, then a group's not going to be for you, because you're going to be so vague in what you're going to start with your group that no one's going to tune in. No one's going to pay attention, and you're going to be, you're going to be wondering what happened. So you've got to at least know who you want to serve.
Yeah. And I've been seeing more of these like customer loyalty groups as well with more advanced businesses. One of the ones that I just joined, so I have alopecia and I wear wigs. And so the wig company that I order from has a Facebook group, and I just joined it. And it was like all of these people who've purchased the products, like sharing their experience and asking questions about different products. And I thought that was also an interesting use of the group, because it's not just for, I guess it is for conversion at some point, because I think would be more willing to purchase from this company because I'm seeing everyone else kind of talk about it. But there's like this loyalty piece as well by having the closed community that can really help kind of keep feeding into your funnel, because now you have these folks who have raised their hand and say, yeah, I'm interested in what you have to offer. So I think that's interesting as well with Facebook groups. I'm glad you mentioned that about more advanced, like farther along, more mature businesses as well, because they serve different purposes along the business growth journey. So when we're thinking about Facebook groups, and we've started the group, we've got our first 100 members, talk to me more about those conversations that we should be having in the group, because I think the inclination for a lot of business owners is to go in the group and immediately start selling our stuff, saying, hey, I have this offer, you should buy it. But that's not really the right strategy with Facebook groups. So tell us about some of those early day conversations that we can start having with those first 100 members.
So before someone comes into your group, you can ask 3 pre-join questions. So you have 3 questions that you can ask. And that is like the beginning of where you have the opportunity to create conversation. So one of those questions I always recommend asking is like, what's the number one question you have as it relates to whatever you help people with? What's the number one question you have as it relates to parenting? What's the number one question you have as it relates to your Facebook group? What's the number one question you have as it relates to finding a good quality man? Whatever the thing is that you're helping people with. So you just ask them, what's the number one question? Now, the question that they have is going to be telling you insight as to like what's top of mind for them, what's their biggest challenge, but don't ever use the language, what's your biggest challenge, because it gets people on the defense. So you ask them, what's the number one question you have? Now you can literally take the answers to those, and those become headlines for your post. They become subject lines for your emails. They become the titles for your Facebook Lives. So now you're speaking in the way that creates conversation in their language that they're using. So it's just a really great way to keep people in conversation. And as you build up a library of content in your group, through these examples, it's easy to send someone a message saying, let's say their number one question was, so we're talking about Facebook groups right now. How do you boost engagement in your group? Well, if I did a Facebook Live on that, I'd be like, hey, when you joined the group, you said you'd wanted to know, like, what's the best way to do this? I actually have a training. Here it is. Go check it out. So now I'm creating value for them specific to what they've asked. So I love that for the pre-join question. A second pre-join question is also saying, hey, we're known as, we help, XYZ people get results. So we help, Facebook group hosts grow an engaged and profitable Facebook group. Would you like to hear from us how? And that gives you permission to reach out to that person and to be able to carry that conversation. We find about 50% of your new members will say, yes, they do want to hear from you. And 50% will say no. So 50% that say no, it's like, okay, well, let's not cold DM someone just to say, hey, let's just leave it and say, okay, we have the opportunity to connect with them in conversation in the group. So those are 2 of the questions that I always like using. A third one would be to get on your email list and get access to a freebie. Then when we're in conversation in the group, creating those purposeful engagement posts gives you an in or an opening. So let's say I asked a question in a group and I was going to say, let's say I was going to say, when I lose X pounds, then I would. So let's say I'm helping people with weight loss. When I lose, and I put in blank pounds, then I would. And I have people fill in the blank on that. So people are saying, hey, when I lose 10 pounds, then I'll finally, put on a bikini. Or when I lose 50 pounds, then I'll finally be able to, go play soccer with my kids, whatever it is that the people are putting in. when they're answering those questions it allows you to filter through and qualify who's fits the mold for who you want to serve. And now we get to be in conversation with those people, right? So it's like, let's say I ask them, when I make blank dollars, right? When I make blank dollars, then I will, okay. So let's say I really want to help people make their first $3,000, just making this up. And then I have a bunch of people that are saying that that's the target they want to meet. Well, now I know that's my ideal person. I get to reach out and create a conversation with them. And I get to be relevant, essentially. So we're creating conversational posts that we get to create relevancy and have follow up. We can be in the comments with them and we can send them direct messages to continue on those conversations throughout.
Yeah. One of the things with these kind of like engagement questions that I hear sometimes people shy away from is they're not sure if their people will engage, right? There's this nervousness around posting on social media, but even more in Facebook groups where, I'm asking this question, will people comment on it? So now that Facebook has that everyone tag, should we use that tag to help people see it? It seems like a more of a divisive strategy. I wanted to get your thoughts on it.
So we found through testing when people use that @everyone tag, it actually limits the reach that they have when they do their regular posting. And so I think people overuse it. I don't know about you, but I'm like, stop tagging me on something that's totally irrelevant that I didn't say that I'm interested in. Yeah. I'm more about like, how do we build an attraction strategy? We're getting people to raise their hands saying, yes, I want this. And yes, I'm interested in that. And when you create relevancy with your content in your group, and you're building your active members in your group, you will get more reach. More people will see your post and more people will have access to it. So I would say use it very, 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 very sparingly. Don't use that @everyone. I think it gets massively overused and it does impact your reach. But a quick tip, if you want to get more reach on a post, do a high, what I call like a mindless engagement post, an hour or two before you do a post that you want people to see. So a mindless engagement post might be something like, hey, I'm looking for a new Netflix series. What you got? Like, what do you recommend? What's the one that you're going to do? Or you ask a post that's totally unrelated, doesn't have anything to do with what you do for business, but it's just something that everybody wants to answer, right? So like, oh my gosh, I have a baby. Like you have a baby, right? And it's like, oh my gosh, I've got a newborn baby. Give me your best tips on getting your baby to sleep. Totally unrelated, but all the moms are going to be in there and it's going to get responses. If you do that type of post before you do a promotional post or a post that you really want people to see, you'll get more reach because it's going to like trigger the algorithms to say, oh, people are engaging and responding to that. Let's show more people that post. So that's a little hack.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's something just about connecting on the human level. I'm finding this a lot on Threads right now, which y'all listening to the podcast, we're going to talk all about Threads next month. But the thing I'm finding about Threads is those kind of like human connection pieces. It's like, yes, we're business owners and yes, we're running a business, but there's a human behind the accounts on every platform. So connecting at the human level can really be a lot easier for us, honestly, just like talking to someone in a coffee shop, which I love. Okay. So let's say we have a group and we've had it for a while and it's dead. It's inactive. There's people in there. We've definitely got our 100 people, but we haven't posted in a while maybe, or even if we have, there's not any engagement. Is there anything we can do to like boost engagement or to revive those inactive groups?
Yes. So it does depend on how inactive is. So there's definitely a point, there's a point at which it does not make sense to try and revive a group. But the challenge is most people look at engagement thinking it's like the number of people that commented or liked. But you want to look in your group insights and find out what is your % of active members. And your active members are people that are actually reading your post, they're watching your videos, or they're overtly engaging, liking, commenting, or posting. But we in our mind think, oh, if they're not commenting, if they're not posting, they're not engaging. But the fact is, if they're consuming our content, they actually are engaging. And we just don't actually see it. So it's really important to go in your group insights and be clear as to like, hey, what's your actual percentage of active members? And if your percentage of active members is less than 25%, it's going to be a really long push of a road to try and bring the group back to life. So if that's the case, sometimes it's easier to create a new group and invite people into the new group from the existing group. But if you have more than that, then to me, it's like I would go on a 30-day bring back to life revival campaign, re-engagement campaign, where you're just giving tremendous amount of value, running some fun things. You can do interviews with people, like just giveaways, like contests, content. Like the only purpose, not to sell, not to do anything, is just to bring to life, and pulling out the stops of creating that. And typically we see with a 30-day re-engagement campaign, engagement starts to come back to life, things start to shift, things start to move, and then you can kind of carry on with a regular, more consistent strategy. But it typically takes about 30 days to kind of bring things back to life if it's been dormant for some time.
Yeah. So as we head into the rest of the year, thinking about the changes that Facebook has made to groups, like they've kind of pulled back on some of the automations and things like that, what should we be thinking about as business owners when it comes to Facebook group strategy?
Yeah. So I look at it as like looking at Facebook groups just as a tool to enhance like the things that you're doing and create connection with people. And so Facebook always changes. I mean, all the socials, they're always changing things, right? Yeah. Removing the tools, saying that they're removing the third-party services, which they've done them before, and then they bring them back. So my estimation is they'll probably bring something back that's going to be equivalent. That just hasn't been announced as of the point of time of recording this. Maybe by the time it goes live, that may already be public and may already come out. And so to me, it's really looking at, okay, Facebook group as a strategy is number one is creating maintenance, ongoing connection-based relationship building content. And then number two is using Facebook groups to level up your sales campaign. So like running your sales system through there. And if we're looking at it from those two strategies, if we're keeping just like you're talking about for the loyalty group, it's like keeping people warm, it's keeping people engaged, it's keeping people interested in the brand, interested in conversation, connecting with other people and creating that sense of community. If we have that as a baseline and we're using our group for that, then in addition to that, we're running our sales campaigns and bringing our people through our group to come participate through those. And that's really the most effective thing. So treat our day-to-day connection in the group and maintenance content as what it is. It's not meant to sell. And then we have our sales campaigns, which are typically like value-based that leads to an offer. That's separate. Let's look at them as two separate entities, two separate things that are happening alongside each other in the group. And I think if you focus on your group that way, maintaining that baseline connection and running your sales campaigns, you will see a great increase in regards to conversions. And you look at like a Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi, or Russell Brunson, James Wedmore. You look at a lot of like industry leaders that are doing multiple $1 million launch campaigns, and they're still using groups, even though they're teaching something else. They're still using Facebook groups as part of their launch strategy to create that connection with those people as they're moving them towards a buying decision. So they work and they do increase conversions. And we see it all the time through industry leaders.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this and you want to build a community, I do think Facebook is one of the easiest ways to get started with that. I started my community on Facebook. Now we're on Circle, but, it's a low barrier to entry. It's really easy to get started, and it's easy because a lot of people are there. So I love that. So for those people who are listening and they're like, I need more Christina in my life. What's a free thing that you can offer to them that can be like a little step into your world?
Yes. So we have a free resource that is 7 days, 7 ways to get your first or next 100 Facebook group members. So like, that's like the minimum milestone marker, but it's also like a movement for those that already have established groups. So that's what we're going to give your listeners: 7 days, 7 ways to create your first or next 100 Facebook group members.
I love it. Okay. Get that, y'all. It's going to be juicy. In the show notes, OnlineDrea.com/312. That's 312 this episode. And all of the links to Christina's stuff. Tell us about your business and where we can find you online.
So you can find me on Facebook at Deliver Your Genius, or Instagram at Christina with a CH .Jandali.
Yay, awesome. And I'll put those links in the show notes as well. Make sure to connect with Christina. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you, dear listener, for another episode of the podcast. Make sure you give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. Spotify helps keep us in the top 100 marketing podcasts. And that's all because of you. I'll be back soon with another episode next week. That's all for now. Bye.